All right, everybody, welcome back to coverage here of the MagicOnline Champion Showcase. My name's Baumeister, that's Anuraag Das, and we are going to be bringing you coverage of this entire event. We kind of reached our halfway point, and now we're about to dive into Constructed, where we're going to be playing a 3-round, essentially new tournament to get us the other person to play against Matthew Wright in the finals. Anuraag, what are you excited for in the Modern portion?
So like I said earlier, there are 3 changes that have happened to the Modern format. Faithless Looting, Mox Opal, and Green Sun Zenith have all been unbanned. And the card that I'm actually most excited about is Mox Opal. Cheap mana acceleration, kind of like how we saw in the Vintage Cube format, is very, very powerful. My favorite deck in Legacy, or one of my favorite decks in Legacy, is Underworld Breach, back when it had, Lion's Eye Diamond. Now, it's not exactly the same, but the Modern equivalent with Mox Opal is extremely powerful. It is a significant upgrade, and I'm looking forward to seeing the 3 competitors that have brought Grinding Breach to the table to take down the Modern portion today.
Yeah, a couple things about that. Number one, the fact that you didn't even mention Splinter Twin is hilarious. The fact that...
oh, yeah.
the fact that Splinter Twin isn't what it used to be, kids, I mean, of course, that was a dominant card, but it makes sense that you even glossed over it because, well, it was extremely flashy and people tried it right away. It's not that good. I'm sorry, everyone in the comments section. And, of course, the One Ring being banned, I think, we were just all so excited about that as, it was a card that was just played in everything, and now it's gone. And the other thing is, Underworld Breach in Modern. I feel like a proud dad, as this is a deck that I've been playing and, designing for so long here in previous iterations with the One Ring, even before the One Ring. And I thought it was the best deck with the One Ring, and now I think it's firmly the best deck in Modern. That obviously isn't a popular opinion amongst everyone, but 3 of our competitors and 3 pretty skilled magicians tend to agree with us, thinking that Underworld Breach is still an incredible, incredible deck, and if not the best deck with the boost of Mox Opal. But I'm with you. Mox Opal, I think, is by far the biggest change. That and the One Ring being banned. I mean, those are probably the most impactful 2 things that happened. And sorry to all those Splinter Twin gamers. We just glossed right over it.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. A 2014 card in 2024, a decade later. Very interesting to see, how it is quite contained. There's a lot of really cool options that we've seen from the Modern Horizon sets that kind of keep that archetype under bay.
Yeah, if you're playing a 4-mana sorcery speed combo card and it gets disrupted by Lightning Bolt or, Fatal Push, yeah, maybe it's not, it didn't survive the test of time that much. So, all right, we're going to get into our first round here of Modern. Let's check out the 2 players. So remember, this is the same structure where one of these 8 players is going to have to 3-0 to play against Matthew Wright in the finals. And of course, if Matthew Wright were to be the one to 3-0, he wins. It's over. Game, set, match will go down to other ways of deciding who that other person is to get the World Championship invite. But Matthew Wright would be the champion straight away. I've never seen it yet, Anuraag. Have you?
Yeah, I think the one time that I have seen it is Boy Genius Nathan Stoyer just winning both portions, and then 20 minutes later I'm scrolling on Twitter and I see oh yeah, GG easy. Just it was incredible to see, honestly. And it's really, really hard to do because you really have to have mastery of not just an Eternal Draft, but Eternal Constructed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so a world champion who was on one of the hottest heaters I've ever seen in my entire life did it. Cool. Pretty tough to do outside of that. So let's get this started here. We have Piotr Gloglowski up against John Ramos here. We are looking at their stats here. Piotr has the best stats of anyone in the tournament, and Piotr did fall round 1 to Tangrams there in Cube, where he drafted quite a nice one. So that will be the players qualified via leaderboard for Piotr and Modern Showcase qualifier for John. And good news for John, well, he's playing Modern. So let's look at Piotr's deck list to see what he brought. Very smart human being here. Piotr Gloglowski bringing Grinding Breach. Tell me about this deck, Anuraag.
Yeah, normally when you think of the Kanister brand, you really are leaning towards Amulet Titan, but we had a chance to talk to him and he said, it's too obvious, and so I want to pick up maybe a different deck, a deck that I have comfort with, and also one that has become very powerful thanks to the unbans and bans. So this is a deck that we have seen a little bit of in the Vintage Cube. It leverages Underworld Breach, but instead of using Brain Freeze, we are combining Grinding Station with a bevy of our 0 mana artifacts. What we end up doing is we will sack one of these artifacts, mill 3 cards in our deck, and then buy it back with Underworld Breach, rinse and repeat until we have no library to play either Thassa's Oracle, or in this case, we'll play Lethal Grape Shots. And what's really interesting is, for those who are familiar with the way that MOCS Amber interacts in this deck, MOCS Opal is even better because it allows us to even more consistently generate mana along the way to give resiliency, cast more cards that can help us execute our combo.
Totally agree. And yeah, Grape Shot as the win con wasn't something that was played very often because, well, the One Ring was the ultimate negate to that. You were not able to win the game if your opponent had protection. So the card was banned, basically. You can't play Grape Shot when the One Ring was in basically every single deck. But now that the One Ring is gone, Thassa's Oracle, when you just play that card on turn 2 or turn 3 or whatever, it sucks. It is not a good card. But Grape Shot, after you played 2 0-drops on turn 2 and you get to kill, an Ocelot Pride and an Ajani or something, ends up being really awesome. So a big upgrade in the win cons there. Now let's take a look at John Ramos's deck. And John is playing Eldrazi Ramp, and a pretty spicy take on this one. Anuraag, walk us through this one.
Yeah, for people who've been playing Modern for a long time, you might remember, the good old Eldrazi Temple into, Thought-Knot Seer and Reality Smasher. We're going to notice that these cards just aren't in this list. With the recent release of Modern Horizons 3, this deck has completely flipped on its head, now leveraging maybe the most powerful colorless spell like in all of Magic. Okay, that's not true. Black Lotus exists.
Yeah, I was just about to tell you to get out of here right now. We just saw Black Lotus in the cube. It's definitely the most powerful.
How about modern level then? Kozilek's Command is a card that has overperformed. It's such a flexible card, and in this style of deck just does so many different things, whether it's graveyard hate or ramp or card selection, things like that. And then with all the acceleration that we have, either in the form of Eldrazi Temple or the newly printed Ugin's Labyrinth, we plan to cast our heavy hitters in the form of World Breaker, in the form of Null Drifter, using cards like Sowing Mycospawn, a card that has torn apart Eternal formats just by how powerful it actually is, to sort of just take over the game with cast triggers. Very Eldrazi, very, well, depending on how you like Eldrazi, demure, I guess? I don't know. We'll see how it goes. This is a very interesting deck because in game 1, its proactivity in the matchup might not be enough to sort of battle against, the effectiveness of the Breach combo, but I think when we get to the sideboard, there'll be a lot more things to talk about.
Yeah, and I'll still say the best colorless card, MOCS Opal. We just talked about it, but I'll let them eat you alive in the comment section, and we'll leave it at that. But I gotta agree with you. This sideboard, especially if I'm a Breach gamer and I'm looking at it, I'm terrified of Force of Vigor. I'm terrified of Trinisphere. I'm pretty worried about Soulless Jailer as well. So, yeah, I think Piotr is gonna have to win game 1, as these post-board games get a little dicey, to say the least. So let's jump on into the match and see who is going to advance to 1-0 between these two exciting gamers.
And looking at these opening hands here, I do think that there is a decent chunk of aggressiveness we need to see from at least the Eldrazi side in terms of mulligans. Because you look at the hand here from Piotr, and you've got that copy of Underworld Breach. You've got acceleration in the form of Malevolent Rumble to sort of power out your graveyard, and also find something like the Grinding Station to win games really fast as turn 3. You're just missing a couple small pieces that are very present in this deck. So from John's side, I would like to see, a disciplined mulligan here that maybe isn't catering to the general type of game plan that we'll see out of these Eldrazi ramp decks on average.
Yeah, see, I think I would keep from John's side. I think that actually looked pretty good, mostly off the strength of Bojuka Bog. Like, you get to have a Rumble on turn 2, you get to Sowing Mycospawn on turn 3 if you want just the ramp, and then you have that Bog to really slow them down. I guess depending on who's on the play here, maybe if you're on the draw, maybe you're right. But, Piotr's hand on the other side as well, having Lightning Bolt, having Unholy Heat in hand, and even having Haywire Might, all 3 of those cards are pretty weak, but 2 land and Rumble is pretty hard to pass up on.
I agree. I mean, also just like not having to dig for the Underworld Breach. That's something that sometimes can be a problem. And looking at Kanister's deck list in a little bit more detail, he did mention that he really did put a lot of priority into honing in on the mana base. One card that we definitely do have in the mana base is the Commercial District. I don't think I see a copy of Hedge Maze. So normally that's something you do see, and the absence of that would definitely impact how, powerful the mana base is in this situation.
Yeah, very strange. I've seen lists with just Thundering Falls. I've seen lists with just Hedge Maze. And then the majority of the lists with Hedge Maze and the blue-red Surveil land. So, going with a complete option C, very interesting. But Kanister always kind of thinking outside the box and really is excellent at mana base, which, something I am not that great at. I will admit right away. But Utopia Sprawl off the top here had to just be the best possible draw, right?
Yeah, one of. And I mean, that's what 30,000 matches of Magic will get you. It'll give you that just natural sense of what's good here. Utopia Sprawl does unlock some pretty powerful stuff on the next turn, whether that's a combination plan of Rumble plus Ghost Quarter, or maybe we're just casting the Null Drifter to dig a little deeper into our deck.
Yep, absolutely. And y'all might think this is a little weird with Kanister leading on Urza's Saga here. I actually love it. The whole point of this matchup, especially for game one, is you want to be comboing very quickly. So Urza's Saga on one, I like to do, against like hyper aggressive combo decks and Eldrazi, where you can just go either get a MOCS Opal extremely fast, or post board, you get to get a hate card, like Soul Guide Lantern against a Storm deck or something like that. Pithing Needle against a deck where you need it. Urza Saga on turn one can be pretty valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sort of just tells you also, how the deck sort of really doesn't play according to the regular rules of modern Magic, in quotes. And that's something that really does excite me. It's kind of like, it's like wacky. And wacky is great.
Yeah, I think this deck feels like a legacy deck amongst modern decks a lot of the time, but Eldrazi is another one of those decks where you're just punching above your weight class. You're doing some absolutely busted things. Kozilek's Command is one of the best cards we've ever seen. Just full stop. Just one of the best cards. Can do so many really busted things, like, even now, just doing that for two, pretty awesome. You get two spawns, you get to draw a card, and that's already like one of the smaller things that you can do with the card. So now will be interesting if we want to see a Myco Spawn or a Rumble, or just say go with the Command. That kind of surprises me.
Yeah, I think Command is one of those cards that it's actually just absurdly powerful in this matchup, right? Because it does have the ability to exile a key card from the graveyard. So let's say you're executing the Grindstone combo and you flip over a Grape Shot. If you're not ready to Grape Shot your opponent into oblivion, then you're kind of in a situation where the Kozilek's Command can snipe your only win condition, and then what do? Your plan B, the Saga tokens, is not necessarily that great against, what the Eldrazi ramp deck has to offer for committing to the board. So a lot of push and pull here, and just knowing Kanister and the level that he plays at, nobody, one does not simply draw go with Eldrazi ramp. He's probably picking up the signals here that there's a looming K command in the distance.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you're not keeping this hand with no plays. So this should very much be on Piotr's radar. And, post board, you have Consign to be able to deal with this. And as it stands, Piotr does have the win on the battlefield right now. But this Kozilek's Command, depending on the timing, depending on what happens, can very much disrupt this plan. And, it comes down to some weird stuff, too. Like, if you're trying to get the win con out of the graveyard with Kozilek's Command, there's sometimes Piotr can time it in such a way where he can cast it first and have priority before Kozilek's Command can even do that.
Yeah, and one thing, I just want to take a look at this board state, Corey, and kind of give a shout out to the power of MOCS Opal in this deck, right? You'll notice that we only have Breeding Pool here as our mana source. So we're actually able to generate red for Underworld Breach only thanks to the MOCS Opal, because the MOCS Amber technically can't generate mana. We don't have a legend in play.
Yeah, 100%. So really shows the power of this Urza Saga play on one, and just MOCS Opal in general. Right when I saw MOCS Opal got unbanned and nothing else got taken from this deck besides the One Ring, when, honestly, if you lose the One Ring in this deck, it was a hit, as this was one of the best One Ring decks, out of all time, because number one, it got to turbo out the One Ring, and number two, it was great against the One Ring. You can combo through it. So every time people cast it against me, I'm like, you got it. It's Oracle time, you know? But now that MOCS Opal is introduced into this, it really put it into a whole nother level.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I want to sort of talk about here is what can the Underworld Breach deck do to play around a card like Kozilek's Command? It's honestly a little bit tricky. Corey, you've played this deck a lot. Do you have any insight into the best way to sort of beat this?
Yeah, so when it comes to pre-board, when you don't have consign here, there's a thing that Kanister can do, and he can kind of just, you know, go for it here. And I think I do still like just going for it because, you know, the more time you give John and the Eldrazi deck, the scarier it can be. Basically, if you can add enough mana and get your storm count high enough, you can have it where the Grape Shot will hit into the yard, and let's say you have 4 mana already available or floating, then you can cast Grape Shot before John has the ability to exile it from the graveyard, and then after it resolves, you cast it again. The problem with that is if you flip over Grape Shot too early, then Kozilek's Command can exile it, and there will be no way to win the game. So it's all about it being on the not on the top of the deck, essentially.
Yeah, and that's kind of a fun little mini game here. I'm actually kind of curious to see whether or not we're going to try to execute the combo. The other thing to keep track of is, like you mentioned, right? Like, when is that Grape Shot going to be lethal? And looking at the life total here from Ramos, you know, 17. So we would need a Storm of like 8 to deal 8 with the first, or Storm 7 to deal 8 with the first Grape Shot, and then we recast it, we could deal 9. Or if we could cast, you know, Grape Shot 3 times, the math will change. So it's kind of really exciting to see, you know, the evolution of this deck and the possible ways that it evolves. Notably, I will say, in this exact matchup, having Grape Shot instead of Thassa's Oracle is an upgrade, because K-Command kind of wrecks Thassa's Oracle at all stages, whether it's in the graveyard or in play.
Yeah, exactly. If it came to Thassa's Oracle, you can't make that play because, like, unless Oracle is in the bottom 3 cards or something, you know, playing it just is not going to do anything because that ability will go on the stack. And, you know, if you don't have the cards in your graveyard, you know, in your library, 3 or less, or 2 or less, it's just not going to work. So Grape Shot does really, you know, allow for this, for you to win in this spot without getting absurdly lucky.
One thing that
I like
really
going for it here, though. I really do.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, yeah, one thing I do admire is how Piotr is just like playing so deliberately, like meticulously, you know, thinking about all the various things here, and probably is running the numbers in his head. He's saying, hey, if I do run into a Kozilek's Command, how am I beating it? Because I think also in game 1, that's one of the few ways that your opponent actually has to interact with you.
Now, if John tries to get froggy here in any way by casting this now, John will lose for sure. So John has to recognize that he has to be patient here and try to get the Grape Shot if it's on, you know, the top X amount of cards. You know, I'm sure there's going to be some math people in the comments that would be like, actually, if it's in the top 14, you're dead, but if it's 15 or higher, I don't know that exact math. I just know if you can generate enough mana where, you know, you don't have to be adding more mana with MOCS Opal, then you're usually fine as you get your storm count higher. Like, even if John takes the bait here, which Kanister is trying to do, where he's saying, like, exile the MOCS Opal, Piotr will win because he doesn't need the MOCS Opal right now. He has enough zeros. He'll find another one. So good job on John to not fall for that bait.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out here. So John is, you know, one of the players who admittedly has been playing only for 2 years, you know, has one of the lower amount of matches played. But guess what, Corey? Most of those matches, like probably 90% plus, it's all modern. So if there's one person here who I know would not flinch in the face of danger, it's John. I think John knows K-Command needs to go exactly after that Grape Shot and nothing else.
Yep, 100%. And one thing I would like to see from Piotr, and it's no need to do it now, is eventually cast these 0 drops from hand to raise your storm counter. No, John! You can't do that here. This will lose John the game immediately.
Yeah, let's see if he's actually going to fire the trigger here. And this was a clear tell, by the way. Now cards are on the table. The mana has been floated. It's K-Command time. And I'm wondering, there's nothing that we could do like exiling the Haywire Might to prevent Metalcraft or anything like that, right? Like,
nope, nothing like that matters, as you know, Piotr correctly left these 0-drops in hand and completely baited John into doing this masterfully. Now, no matter what's gonna happen is Piotr's gonna just exile until he finds a MOCS Opal. He has a Metalcraft already with that bobble and is going to eventually add enough red mana to Grape Shot here. So, yep, this was not the time to do it. And Piotr really did. And there's the Grape Shot. That is way too early to be able to Grape Shot. So if John would have been patient and in response to that, exiled that Grape Shot, John would have, you know, I couldn't say exactly win the game, but Piotr would not be able to combo.
All right, here, and we're gonna watch this combo execute out here, but the general gist is as you're seeing on the board, right? We're gonna see a lot of this throughout the course of the day, so I'll go over it one time. We're gonna basically loop grinding stations, sacrificing a 0-mana artifact while Underworld Breach is in play. Doing that allows us to generate storm and mana thanks to the MOCS Opal, while also digging through our deck. And as that happens, we will have enough storm count eventually to just Grape Shot for lethal, or in certain instances, play Thassa's Oracle for the win.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, everyone would think, well, Piotr has the Lightning Bolt in his deck, so maybe you could just MOCS Opal, Lightning Bolt over and over. The thing is, when that happens, you're going net -3 cards. So when you're net -3 cards, Piotr did not have enough cards in his graveyard to be able to make that happen. So, yeah, this Grape Shot win will still be able to take it down. And really, really wild game, and a little impatient there from John Ramos.
Yeah, but looking at sideboards here, I think, you know, going into our first sideboard game, John is going to be significantly happier with the way the texture of the matchup is going to be changing. We're looking at cards like Trinisphere. We're looking at cards like Force of Vigor, Consigned to Memory, Soulless Jailer. We have so many applicable cards here in the matchup that we just turn into more of a hard control role in the matchup and just let our spells do talking.
Yeah, absolutely. Get some of those cards out, like Kozilek's Return. I actually like Emrakul a decent amount, and I hate Consign against Breach. Well, you know, I'm a Breach gamer, true and true, and I love seeing Consign when people bring it in, because it just isn't the hate card people think it is. You know, you can consign the Storm Trigger or whatever, and then you can just still combo, and especially most of these lists bring in another win con. So it ends up not being great, but every other card that John brought in, I really, really like.
All right, well, speaking of cards that we've brought in, there is the Force of Vigor. I do notice, though, we don't actually have a green card to pair with it.
Yeah, so this is a little rough. You know, I don't know if you really want to keep that, because especially to turn on the Ugin's Labyrinth, you got to get rid of your only card. So I'm with you on that. That's one to send back. And man, that hand does not look that much better, but you have a Devourer, so I think you just kind of have to do it.
Yeah, and on the other side, we did see a very quick mulligan here from Kanister, just putting away the MOCS Opal only hand. Now we've got at least the Scalding Tarn and Malevolent Rumble to get things going.
And I love mulliganing with the Grinding Breach deck, because most of the time there's so much redundancy where you only need one card, or you have a win con in your hand. There's like so many cards that you're totally fine putting back. So this deck molds to 6 extremely well, but anything lower than that, of course, you know, it is not ideal.
Yeah, I'm trying to see actually how busted is this MOCS Opal draw here. Do we have a way to win as early as turn 2? Like, even if we went turn 1, no, I mean, there's definitely a turn 3 win here somewhere. I'm trying to see if we could push the limit and win on turn 2.
Yeah, nope, I don't see that, but I bet we're going to see another Urza Saga turn 1 play, as it just seems really good here, unless Piotr was afraid of like Westmate, Battlemate, or Force of Vigor. So I do like that. You get to play a little bit more conservatively, because if your opponent does have Force, you just lost your land and your MOCS. You know, I think Piotr would have made the play of just not playing the MOCS if he went with the Saga, but this is a bit of a safer play here to line up a Rumble on turn 2.
Yeah, and I think, you may be wondering, why did Piotr play this MOCS Opal, into the face of something like a Battle Mage or a Force of Vigor? And the answer is Trinisphere, right? Kind of like how you would preemptively play your zeros in a matchup where you're expecting Chalice of the Void. Exact same principle applies here.
Very good point. Yeah, I don't know how many times it's like, I'll wait and hold this, and then you play Trinisphere. I'm like, oh, great. Good job, Corey. Great job. Yeah, that's a really tricky one here. So a good card against Trinisphere is your one of Haywire Might that you need Saga to get most of the time. But yeah, that is a card that gets you very, very often.
Okay, Besage, a pretty good pickup here, one that does get around Trinisphere. And then this turn we have the option between Malevolent Rumble or Grinding Station. And I am kind of a fan here of getting the Rumble online, because it functionally does cost, I'm going to put invisible air quotes that you can't see right now, 1 mana, because you do get that Scion token, and it really does help you get closer to that turn 3 win, which by my calculation, Corey, we have it. It's just like here with the resources that we have. So now we're looking for any sort of tool that can help us fight through interaction.
Yeah, I would have liked, if you didn't play Saga on 1, I would have liked to not play Saga on 2 here as well, and just rumble and just accept that this is an Urza Saga's game, because, well, I mean, we have perfect knowledge that there's 2 of Westgate Battlemate. Piotr has that knowledge as well, but, we have the knowledge that they're in hand, and this is going to be an excellent play to deal with that Saga. And, if Piotr did play Misty and rumbled here, next turn, we could just about wrap. Yeah, we could wrap it up next turn without it. So maybe a slight calculated risk that is not going to work out for Piotr.
Yeah, and I'm wondering here, like, what if we draw into something like a MOCS Amber or an artifact that we can reasonably cast? Does that turn? Does that make
actually, we still got it here if Piotr goes for it, as he can just breach, bring back. No. We're a little short. Yeah, we're 1 mana short. Because you can breach, bring back MOCS Amber, and then you have 2 artifacts. But then you only have 1 mana floating. You can play the Aether Spellbomb, and then your MOCS Opal is on, but then you still only have 1 mana. So no matter way you slice it, we are still 1 card short. 1 mana short.
Yeah, if that was like a MOCS Opal in the graveyard, then I think maybe the story would be a little bit different here, which kind of just goes to show you how powerful this edition is for the archetype.
Yep. So I would assume we just see a good old-fashioned Grinding Station here, or if Piotr wants to be a little more defensive, he could try to not do that, but we'll see.
He's doing the math right now. Do we have the actual win here or not?
And it's not even that. Like, if you don't have the actual win, with having a redundant copy of Underworld Breach, there's some world where he tries to do, like, what I like to call just a value breach. Like, get 2 mana, get 2 cards from your yard, say go, have the win next turn, but deems it to not be worth it here.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we are taking some time to set up here. This is actually going to expose Grinding Station to another Wastegate Battle Mage.
Yeah, that doesn't matter, because you can sacrifice it in response. So, I see right now, since there's still a basic to search off that Ghost Quarter, you can Battlemade the Grinding Station, Piotr can sack it, and next turn win the game. I think the only way that John doesn't die is if he just goes land go for Force of Vigor and holds that up. But that doesn't feel good either,
It really doesn't. And I think once you get that green card that you can pitch to the Force of Vigor and start suddenly spending your mana, tapping out for scary threats like Devourer of Destiny, you're much happier. It's a really good point here. And that just goes to show you, right? Like, just all the internal resiliencies that are caked into this Underworld Breach combo. I'm scared that I'm going to spend a lot of this modern portion just gushing over how amazing the Breach combo deck is. But it has got susceptibilities, and you can see here John identifying that we're going to just hold up mana, represent K-Command, but represent Force of Vigor, and make Kanister do the dancing here.
Exactly. And I mean, honestly, I feel you. I've been spending the last 2.5 years playing only Grinding Station here. I absolutely love it. I think it's the best deck, and I'm glad to be a little vindicated by seeing some of the top players in this tournament all bring it. I'm not going to spoil it to everyone, but It is brought by quite a few players here. So here we go, Underworld Breach, and now we will see how we wanna...
Do we win here through Force of Vigor?
I don't think so, but maybe. It depends what Force of Vigor targets. If Force of Vigor targets Underworld Breach and Grinding Station, I don't think it's possible.
Well, because then we can play another Breach from our hand.
Yeah.
And then we can buy back... We'd have to, like, sack the Opal so that we keep generating mana. This is close. This is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to let the game play out here, and we'll see what eventually transpires. But I think with more time, it's possible to deduce a land or a scenario where you can win through this Force of Vigor.
Yeah, I think you're 1 mana short from winning through it because, yeah, I agree. Right here, Piotr could sack the MOCS Opal and target himself, and that would have the ability to come back. Then you play Underworld Breach, you bring back MOCS Opal, and then boom, there's no second mana to be able to do that, and there's no way to sack that MOCS Opal. So this was the perfect... We did play... Oh, that's a good point. Did we? Maybe not. Okay, if we didn't, then we do have it wrapped up.
Okay. Wait, we sacked the MOCS Opal. Hold up.
Yeah, if we didn't play that Beseiju, and yeah, it's turn 4, so I don't think we did. Yeah, this is game then. As long as we have enough cards in the yard, and wow, we are at Exacxies. Actually, we have +1 card, but yeah, unreal.
I am so color me tickled here. That's absurd. Absurd to see that through a single piece of hate, you know, we are winning as fast as turn 4. Generally speaking, you don't see this kind of resiliency for combo decks because they're pretty all in here. But the Breach combo is so mana productive and effective and just like it's a 2 mana card that can use Moxen to generate mana. This is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was impressive. We comboed through 2 pieces of hate. You know, the Battlement to be able to destroy the land as well as the Force of Vigor. And Kanister had the ability to win the previous turn as well if he didn't play the Saga. Like, I totally get why he did, and I think it's totally defensible, but he had the ability to win the turn before as well, which is just so incredible and just shows the power of this deck. All right, Bob, you can speed up from here. So here we are. We are going to do some grinding. Everyone just relax your mind with me and get to grinding as Kanister is going to be able to pick up the win here and in just really impressive fashion. I mean, just shows the power of this deck, Anuraag. And, you know, believe it or not, I'm a little biased, you know, as I'm sure you can all figure out. But I really do think it's the best deck, and it does some really, really nasty things.
Yeah, I actually kind of want to ask for anybody who's watching today to post in the YouTube comments how you feel about watching this right now. Do you think by the time March comes around that this archetype will still be as powerful as it is, as Kanister will take the match 2-0, defeating multiple pieces of hate from the Eldrazi ramp side of things? Absolutely spectacular to watch and really just demonstrates the new power of Underworld Breach in a MOCS Opal world.
Yeah, absolutely. MOCS Opal and Underworld Breach go together like lamb and tuna fish, you know? I mean, it's just so good. All right, sorry. That's a bad joke. That's a bad joke, but
why do I feel like you've tried that before though? Was it really a joke though?
I've tried it and it's never succeeded, and you know what? I still keep beating a dead horse, you know, until someone laughs out there. But yeah, that is Kanister doing what he couldn't do in the vintage portion and being 1-0 to be able to give himself a solid start to this and be down to 4 players that are going to be undefeated with their chance to make it to the grand finals. So that's not it though. We are going to check out a backup feature match. Let's load up these 2 players as we got more action for you here. We have Andrei, who we just saw lose that heartbreaker here in Vintage Cube just a second ago, up against Karl. And Karl, one of the vets, of course, playing for 13 years, the most out of any player, qualified via Legacy and the leaderboard for Andrei. So let's take a look at Andrei's deck list to start it up. and we're going to see another of the big bad of the format. You know, I think Underworld Breach is starting to gain recognition, and I think it's closely becoming the best deck, but you know, I would say it's still maybe in maybe third or second as far as the most played and just best decks in air quotes. Boros Energy got some cards banned from it, but it's still very firmly in that, you know, one of the best decks. Talk to me about this one.
Yeah, I think Boros Energy is a deck I kind of expected to falter from Amp Raptor being banned as one card that we didn't mention earlier alongside the One Ring. But lo and behold, I think it's still like one of the best performing decks post changes. And the reality is that, you know, you've still got very powerful cards in your Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride combo, a Johnny plus Goblin Bombardment, and even Flage, which is a card that we've seen sort of come to rise here. These are all cards that belong to a very strong deck with a very strong core. And one thing I want to point out is that, you know, looking at the sideboard, you can see Andrei knows that Breach is on the rise, and he has a very respectful sideboard for it as well.
Yeah, totally agreed. The best card against Breach. I almost don't even want to say this on air, so hopefully we can edit this out just so not all these Boros Energy players can get a leg up. It's Stony Silence. Stony Silence was starting to pick up popularity with the One Ring being everywhere, and then everyone recognized, they're like, oh, well, if Breach is going to be played a lot, this is the card that absolutely takes it down, as one of Breach's #1 tools is Haywire Might to be able to deal with it, and yeah, that doesn't work. So let's take a look at Karl Sarap's deck list, and you guessed it, it's Breach. It's Grinding Station, but Anuraag, a way different version.
Yeah, so I know, Corey, you're a fan of the Teamer variant, but I have secretly been eyeing this 4-color version. Now, wait, bear with me for a minute. I know I'm saying 4 colors, and that does mean the mana base might be a little bit of a puzzle to figure out here. But what white gives you, in addition to having access to powerful green cards like Malevolent Rumble, is Portable Hole, fantastic at providing Metalcraft alongside Mox Opal, and then Prismatic Ending, Teferi, and a card that I have played in Legacy longer than I can remember. That's Seven's Reclamation. Seven's Reclamation is a card that lets you basically buy back breaches that you may have milled, you know, through Emeries or Rumbles or Grinding Stations, things like that, for the cost of 5 mana, while also giving you additional, you know, an additional cast if you specifically cast it from your graveyard. So all in all, I think this version of the deck has a couple more tools available to it in white. I see in the sideboard too, something like Dranith Magistrate does come up here. And I guess I'm not seeing any copies of Teferi, so that is kind of interesting deck building choice. And 2 copies of Tamiyo, very interesting.
Yeah, super interesting list. I think this, you know, is a team deck. So, you know, there's another gamer that has this exact same 75 as well. And I'm with you. I think the Portable Hole is awesome. I think Prismatic Ending is awesome. The Reclamation, I just don't get it. Like, it just doesn't seem that great to me unless it's like Underworld Breach #5 or whatever. Like, if you can bring it back and you know, you can bring it to Fairy back or something, I get it. I think that's really awesome. But I think the main thing I want to point out in this main deck configuration is 2 Soul Guide Lanterns in the main. That leads me to believe that this team of Karl Sarap and Tangrams really thought Breach was going to be played, and having main deck Graveyard Disruption, I think, is awesome. Plus, the board looks really, really good. I am with you that I do think the Teamer version is more what I would play, but I'm very interested in this. I think this easily could be a better version. So we are going to jump in with Andrei already up a game against Karl Sarap. I do think that is the tougher game for Breach, but post board, if you got enough sweepers, you know, you can really make it happen. But one last thing I'll say on this, Anuraag, is this matchup actually got a little bit worse with the One Ring being banned, as, you know, you didn't care about their One Rings, but, you know, you were able to do like the One Ring loops with Emery against Boros, and they just could never beat it.
Yeah, I'm gonna also give a shout out here. So this being such a small field, you know, it's 8 players. You can probably guess that some people are bringing Breach to the tournament and things like that. I want to give a shout out to Andrei's innovative deck building and his just adaptability to the metagame. There was a main deck copy of Surgical Extraction in Andrei's list, as well as not one, but 2 Thraben Charms, which is a card that does have a lot of text against Underworld Breach.
Yeah, no, that's really, really nice. I didn't even really pay attention to that. Easily could have been the reason why he snuck out game number 1. And, you know, other lists have played Spell Snare in the main, which is excellent against Boros just through and through. And, you know, Karl Sarap and his teammate decided to play Spell Pierce instead, which can be better, can be worse in certain scenarios for sure.
Yeah, now this is going to be really interesting, right? We do have the Thraben Charm here, and I think, again, just going to gush a little bit more, the deck construction here for this Boros list, the one of Felia allows you to play it at that instant speed with Thraben Charm and
Yes.
you know, our Shepherd Dog. So it's kind of interesting to see, like, if we're afraid of the combo happening next turn, well, sure, we just slam Felia on their end step or hold up Thraben Charm, and then also, based on the way this hand is shaping up, if we get to that turn 3, you know what's really good against 4-color decks, Corey?
Don't tell me. Don't even summon those 2 words to existence. There's one card I hate losing to, and it's about what you're about to say.
It's Blood Moon. Yep. Sorry. No. Yeah. I mean, Blood Moon is fantastic against Urza Saga. It's fantastic against Temple Garden and Thundering Falls mana bases. So really, Andrei's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve that he might be able to deploy in the next few turns. Of course, we're gonna have to hit mana sources to sort of, you know, exact it into fruition, but these decks are designed to deploy.
All right, Bob. There's a pointless tank here. Okay, I'm just gonna go back into it, but maybe edit that out. Okay. Yeah, it must have just been like a internet thing or something. So edit all this out. I'll start right now. Okay, so going to our turn 2, we have, you know, picked up a Arid Mesa here. So like you said, is just going with the Fila and just holding up that Thraben Charm, because I'm with you. It looks scary. We look and there's a grinding station in the yard already. So, I mean, if you would just have the breach, you do need a little bit more help as well at this moment, but not much. No, actually with the MOCS Opal, it would be all locked up if the breach was there. It is not, but Urza Saga comes down and Blood Moon is ready to go next turn. So not only does it prevent, you know, the fact that you can have colored mana for Underworld Breach, but it does take away Urza Saga straight away. And the one thing I'll say, Anuraag, though, is Blood Moon in this matchup did get worse because MOCS Opal can add colored mana.
That's a great observation here for sure. And one thing to note is that there actually is a Spell Pierce that's been picked up here from Karl's side, which is going to come absolutely in clutch in stopping the first Blood Moon, which means if Andrei feels confident in holding up the Thraben Charm this turn, tapping out for Felia on the end step, keeping up the shields, untapping, and then slamming Blood Moon in the face of an Urza Saga, which is very tempting. Very tempting. Karl gets the option to potentially punish using the Spell Pierce, countering the Blood Moon, and then drawing into an Underworld Breach to win on the spot. So I want to pay careful attention to how Andrei sort of reads, perceives, and breaks down this scenario to see whether or not we're actually going to play the Blood Moon on turn 3, or if we have the wherewithal to just keep the Thraben Charm up.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that Andrei is thinking about right now is Thraben Charming the Urza Saga with Chapter 1 on the stack to prevent it from actually adding mana straight away. Like, that's tempting, of course, because, well, it's a 2-mana Stone Rain, but you have your Blood Moons about to come down and Stone Rain as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's a tough spot here from Andrei. I do not envy him, as I don't know what I would want to do either.
Yeah, and I guess this is something that's really interesting. So when it comes to playing Breach, the first thing that you really need to consider is how do you beat hate, right? How do you beat all the pieces that are trying to slow you down? Is there a situation here where, you know, Karl could theoretically play through Thraben Charm?
Like, as far as exiling the graveyard?
Exiling the graveyard, or just like disrupting the combo and allowing Andrei to untap and deploy Blood Moon? Because this seems like a very aggressive play, right? Like, imagine if the last card is like Underworld Breach, Grinding Station, and like some sort of mana, you know, this could be over right now.
Yeah, so it is definitely one of the tougher ones because, like, number one, you can either exile the graveyard in response to Breach. That's usually the best case scenario because it kind of destroys the enchantment while taking away resources. But if you try to, like, let them go off, you know, in air quotes, where you, like, start to, like, be like, I'll exile their graveyard after you mill out a good chunk and maybe you mill out your win con, it doesn't work that well because you could mill over a Spell Pierce and just counter it. So I think the best thing you can do to it is in response to an Underworld Breach, exile the graveyard and hope they don't have the ability to fuel the graveyard again. But sometimes with Grinding Station, you can just do that once again. So it is tough because it's all contextual to what's in hand. Sometimes it's better to destroy the Underworld Breach than to exile the graveyard.
Yeah, and now looking at everything together here, I mean, we get one draw step here, Karl. So show me what you got. And actually, I guess you get two because you have the Mishra's Bauble as well. That's a Malevolent Rumble. That's another relook.
Yes, that is huge. So, you know, now it's a big question of, do you want to Rumble before you play a land, or do you want to go Saga Rumble off Temple Garden? And I think I like that. You know, it leaves yourself with blue-red, and if we find Underworld Breach, it's over.
I really think we're looking to kill here this turn, and I agree with the decision here. I mean, this is the window where Andrei's got shields down. We do know about the existence of surgical extraction in the 75, which has been really reasonable to expect. And I guess we'll get information shortly on what the Rumble actually got to pick up. Is that a Sevens Reclamation in the graveyard?
No, it's a
prismatic ending. Sorry, prismatic ending.
Yeah, and maybe, okay, a bit of delay there. So there is the Jace, and, you know, a little far away from casting that, as there's only 2 artifacts right now. So that was pretty bad here from Karl. That might have been the turn to try to win this game. And now, whether you go Witch Enchanter or Blood Moon, that Urza Saga's power is going to be taken away. I can't imagine Andrei would do any play that wasn't those two, though, because that is just how good Saga is. It turns on Opal, it cranks out 3/3s and 4/4s and 5/5s, oh my, but it can be brutal.
Yeah, and I'm actually just wondering here, let's say the Blood Moon does come into play and we top deck a Breach. I mean, do we have anything in the graveyard that we can actually buy back? I don't think the answer is yes. So,
yeah.
Okay, so Breach off the top is not exactly lethal yet.
It is, actually, yeah. Breach
off
the top.
I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. Yeah, because we can eventually flip into a MOCS Amber or something like that. And
then, all you gotta do is bring back a Bauble and then just start grinding away and you got it going. So, yeah, Breach is still lethal right now if we find it. But Blood Moon does take away Jace. You know, it takes away that ability. And, you know, that is some of the reason why whenever I'm playing against a Boros energy deck, and subsequently the same I'm playing against a Dimir Frog deck, you have a configuration of lands that I like to start with. And my ideal start never involves Saga because, you know, they can just get destroyed by Harbinger and Blood Moon. You know, up against Boros Energy, I like Island and Stomping Ground. And up against Dimir, I like Mountain and Breeding Pool as my start almost at any point whenever I can help it, as you still get to play Magic whenever these annoying cards like Blood Moon and Harbinger come down.
Yeah, that's actually really great insight here. And I'm guessing, I'm trying to think here, right? Like, Breach is still potentially scary. One thing that I noticed, Andrei tapped the snow-covered plains last turn. And to me, when we're looking at Decklist at this level, I think that might be a tell from Karl that there's no like Orum's Chant or Wear Tear available here.
Yeah.
So some small little nuance here to pick up. And then I'm trying to think if Andrei's trying to close the game out right now, what's one card that we could draw off the top that will just seal the game shut, no questions asked?
From Andrei's side, you know, I'm thinking
Stony Silence would probably do it, right?
Stony Silence would be absolutely backbreaking, as well as just a Draneth Magistrate or a Thraben Charm. You know, I mean, Thraben Charm, if you ever just have that when your opponent doesn't have a counterspell, and if Karl were to play a Breach in this type of scenario, you know, you just feel pretty strong about that. Now that I say that, you can just still win with Grinding Station and Opal. So no, I think I'm with you. I think Draneth Magistrate and Stony Silence are probably the best.
Okay. The Witch Enchanter here is kind of interesting. I don't know what you're really looking to target, because no matter what, it's just going to go to the graveyard and send 3 cards as well.
Yeah. I think I like that hit as well because that does shut down any form of colored mana now. You know, there is Portable Hole and Breach. Breach looks like it was the second card, so it wouldn't have been the top deck. I always feel terrible, even though it's always the correct play and you can't really hurt yourself. You know, beat yourself up when you mill the card you need, even though it's correct to mill. But yeah, just another land off the top and all the advantage here to Andrei.
I guess that's one upside to a card like Seven's Reclamation is that when you're in those states where you are self-milling, you know, you never feel too bad. That being said, like, is that really a reason to, you know, sacrifice a slot in your list? I'll let the pros decide. Corey, what do you have to say?
Yeah, you know, that is one thing I haven't been able to test yet. So while I think it looks, you know, a little off on paper, I didn't get a chance to test that specific version with that card. So I'm not going to hate on it too much, as I would think I would need to play it a bit. But if Karl, Sarap, and Tangrams decided to play it, it's good enough for me.
Fair enough here. And now we've got Felia in play at the end step at instant speed. And combined with the Witch Enchanter, we are going to be able to now deny any more top deck artifacts that should be put into play. So, for example, I don't see a reason why Karl would deploy something like the MOCS Amber, but Grinding Station in play, for example, is just going to instantly go to the bin here.
Yeah, you can definitely do that. You can start eating away at the spawns as well. Both of them are kind of non-impactful plays. You know, realistically, neither of them do anything too exciting because as it still stands, as far as I'm seeing, if Karl top decks Breach, it's still over in favor of Karl.
Oh, yeah, great point here. Good point. So I guess with Felia, then maybe you don't go after the Grinding Station, but you just, blink the Ajani, put more damage and toughness into play to reduce the number of draw steps that we'll see.
Yeah, I'm either taking out the blockers or I'm creating more cats, and it's basically the same when you're putting in another 2-power creature. Karl recognizing I'm gonna get these blockers in. Well, the getting's good, and you know, this Flage not looking amazing. Karl's running out of turns. This would definitely be a prime turn for an Underworld Breach.
I keep saying that I keep trying to come up with these lines where, you know, oh, the Boros player doesn't have to worry about a top deck Underworld Breach. And quite honestly, it's just like every time, Corey, you're just like, nope, there's actually just an out here. This is how we could do it. And it's crazy because now I'm like sort of racking my brain. What actually beats this deck? And perhaps it's just, you know, a combination of cards like Stony Silence, like you mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, for what it's worth, Stony Silence does do it now, and I think Drannith Magistrate still does it, as well as Orum's Chant is excellent at shutting it down, and even the Thraben Charm, I think, is probably enough to do it, as you can just exile the graveyard here, and there's only MOCS Amber, so while you can still get the grind going, where you can add a, you know, get 3 cards into your graveyard, use those 3 to bring back MOCS Amber, you're not accomplishing anything anymore. So I think there's a lot of cards that close the door for Andrei, but that top deck Plains was not one of them. Unless we can just win with the Johnny here. So we can attack for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then you Flage away a cat. And then you make another creature for 14. Oh my, it's 14. Brutal. That's what I'm counting, at least.
I guess there's no way to like leverage Felia either to deal that last point of damage with the link ability. No. Okay. All right.
Oh, wait. If you... Is it 1 extra damage if you blink out a Johnny? No, yeah, because you need a Johnny to flip, and it would come back at end step. So, yeah, I only count 14, so I think the best you can do is, you know, not even deal 14, but just exile the Witch Enchanter.
Oh.
Get rid of Grinding
Station, maybe you exile your own Blood Moon?
That's interesting.
Exile up to 1 other target non-land permanent. So you exile the Blood Moon. You swing in for
Yeah, because
Bunch of damage and then...
that's net 3. If you do that play, you add 3 damage to the numbers that I figured out. Because actually you add 4. So I would think, yeah, we have 18 damage if we go for it. But the problem is you unlock Blood Moon, and what could Karl have, you know?
That is great risk assessment here. So do we try to win the game on the spot, or do we rely on Blood Moon here? And
we're going to know the answer with what this Fila targets. Nice line to find Anuraag if we go for it. Oh, baby!
All right, there we go. It looks like sort of doing the math, crunching the numbers here, sort of realizing, okay, I'm just going to kill you here. What could you possibly have?
I love this. I love this from Andrei because he is just preventing a top deck breach from winning the game. And yeah, there's some risk, but worst case scenario, Blood Moon's coming back at end step, and there's still a ton of damage coming in here with this Flage. So yes, okay, this was an excellent line that Andrei found.
Yeah, and I guess one thing that I also want to point out, right, when we're looking at, so this is where Andrei is going to take some time. It's open deck list. Let's look at what's going on here. In the main deck, I see 1 castable Unholy Heat, and in the sideboard, I see a couple copies of Fire Spout, but you kind of know that unless it was exactly top decked this turn, Karl would have already played these cards out. So, you know, it's fine to be a little bit aggressive here. And then also with the Blood Moon coming back, you've got a good turn as well. You can also just buy back Flage and still threaten lethal the next turn too. So really, you've got great option coverage here. This line by Andrei is strong.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think like Mystical Dispute is the only card that got unlocked, but like the Unholy Heat, Karl could have already cast. So now we'll see if Andrei just goes face or tries to kill a creature and get some stuff going with a Johnny. Either way, it's going to be Andrei winning this match, taking down Karl Sarap in a really impressive line here to just make sure Karl did not have the ability to draw a breach. Thank you, Karl, for letting us know what the next card was, because I would have died not knowing if the breach was there. I kind of wanted the breach to be there just for the content, where Andrei found that sweet line, though, Anuraag.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Going into this round, I was really nervous. I was thinking to myself, okay, Breach is just decisively the best deck. It's objective. It's not even close. And looking at Andrei's list, well, I think it goes 2 ways, right? It goes, first, maybe do you have to have main deck Thraben Charm and Surgical Extraction in order to win? And second, do you have to have as heavy of a sideboard? And if so, is that a good thing? But yeah, I don't know. Either way, Boros Energy going to take it down and still remain top dog. Pre-post ban, some things just don't change.
Yeah, some things don't change. This Boros Energy deck looked awesome. I would think my one takeaway is like, while Blood Moon did some things, I think it actually hurt Andrei more because it took away those Arena of Glories with the Flage. And sure, it stopped Karl from casting Tamiyo, stopped him from casting Emery, but that wouldn't have been the biggest deal. That's the thing about this matchup, though. It is so, it just can go in so many different ways. You have to play around so much different hate. And being the Breach player, you actually have a big advantage with the open deck list tournament because you know what you got to play around. You get to look at Andrei's list and be like, okay, I only have to play around every hate card ever printed in Modern. Perfect.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and I think that's what you want. That's the position you want to be in, where you have layers of interactions. Well done, Andrei, for taking down what might be soon a menace of a deck in this format.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is Andrei going to 1-0, trying to get back to the finals here to go get a rematch here in the grand finals. So before we go, let's do another giveaway. What do you say, Anuraag? You in or not? Are we done giving away stuff?
Absolutely not. All day, every day at the MagicOnline Champion Showcase, we're giving away 500 play points, and I'm gonna hope that I get them too. I just want to keep drafting Cube.
Yeah, you want to draft some Cube. For me, I want to join some of these Modern challenges. There's a Modern qualifier that is on Monday because it is a holiday, so that is a nice one to play some high-level MagicOnline events if you want to play some Breach or some Boros Energy or something like that. And that's kind of step one. If you do well in that, guess what kind of points you get from that, Anuraag?
Oh yeah, that's great. You get points that'll get you on the path to playing in this event at a later time here, which is it truly is an accomplishment thinking about how much you have to go through to get here, but that's what it takes to be a champion.
Yeah, that's the way to get those leaderboard points when you're not trying to qualify through the very difficult events of just having to win them. So consistency over those type of events can get you there. So leave a comment below. We'll be picking one of those comments up from each of these videos, and we'll be messaging you to give you 500 play points. So, all right, everyone, thank you for watching this round. We will be right back here at the Magic Online Championship Showcase for round number 2 of Modern.